Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home, and when you are on the road, and when you are going to bed, and when you are getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. The Lord your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give you when he made a vow to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 10. The Book of Deuteronomy, the fifth book of the Bible, and the final book of the Pentateuch, is a book about the precipice of transition. The Israelites have been wandering the desert for decades, seemingly marching towards the promised land, but wondering if and when they would ever make it. Now, they are at the doorstep. They can see the promise of God before them. But Moses knows he will not be the one leading them from that point on. Moses, the prophet and leader of Israel, has final words for this people of God. And that is the book of Deuteronomy. It's a look at Moses' heart for Israel, at God's heart for his people. It's a call to choose the Lord, right? Moses can no longer choose God for them. It's Moses' call to them, choose God. Be the people of God in this new land, in this new generation. Deuteronomy is a wonderful book, and to help us navigate it today is Dr. Sandra Richter. Dr. Richter is the Robert H. Gundry Chair of Biblical Studies at Westmont. And her books include The Epic of Eden and an upcoming commentary on Deuteronomy. My name is Jason Wieland, and this is Doable Discipleship. Now, my conversation with Dr. Sandra Richter. All right, I am joined today by Dr. Sandra Richter. Sandy, thank you for joining me as we talk about Deuteronomy. We're finishing up the Pentateuch with this conversation today, and I'm grateful for your time.
Well, anytime I get to talk about Deuteronomy, hey, I'm in. So thank you for the invitation.
Happy to hear it. Okay, so as we've done with every episode of the series, I'd love to start with kind of getting some of the basic details. So, and I always have to ask it this way because there's always a little nuance in this answer. I've found. Do we know who wrote the book of Deuteronomy and when?
You have just stumbled into the hornet's nest of academic inquiry into the Old Testament.
I figure we just start with it. We start with the hard questions.
Yeah, start with the hard stuff. There honestly is not a more debated question, I think, in Old Testament studies right now. So starting with what the Bible has to say, very clear cut. What's happening as we step into the book of Deuteronomy is that the offspring of Abraham have finally finished up the longest sanctification process in the history of the biblical text, an entire generation in the wilderness, lots of purging, lots of discipline, lots of preaching, and they are standing on the plains of Moab, which is right outside the land promised. They are looking over the river and they can see the lights of Jericho on the horizon. And Moses calls them all bright and early, and he announces to them, I'm preaching today. I'm preaching all day today. You need to bring snacks, and we will have some bathroom breaks. But from dawn to dusk, I am offering to you what I like to say to my undergrads is the last boyfriend speech. And by the time I'm done, I will have articulated to you what life has to look like on the other side of the river. And then to quote Eugene Peterson, I love this. Moses will preach the longest sermon ever recorded, and then he will step down off his pulpit, climb a mountain, and die. Talk about rhetorical impact. So, according to the biblical text, this is a speech of Moses. Who actually records it? The Bible doesn't clarify. Did he step up with a manuscript? Probably not. But a lot of tradition, Jewish tradition, will say that it was actually Joshua who recorded it. But it's definitely, according to the biblical text, the words of Moses. Now, when you step into the academy, oh my God. What is currently in vogue is the idea that this is a second, third century creation of the resettling exiles who were busy trying to navigate their conflict with the Sumerians and have therefore written up a joint constitution and bylaws that will keep the Jews and the Sumerians at peace. And that's why they don't actually give a specific name for the central cult site, because they want to allow the Sumerians to worship at Mount Gerizim and the Jews to worship in Jerusalem. So when I give formal lectures on this, I usually have a timeline with, my little animated PowerPoint, where the biblical text is going to claim this is right at the beginning of the settlement period. Julius Wellhausen and his kin pushed it to Josiah's reform in the 7th century. So an urban document written by the elite in Jerusalem in the 7th century. And then we went through an era where it was a utopian rewrite on the part of the exiles who were still in Babylon. And now we've moved it all the way forward to the Persian period. So it's quite a stretch.
Quite a stretch.
Yeah.
So the answer is not 100% sure, but there's lots of different thoughts around what it could be.
I actually have some pretty firm opinions on that, but and I think that as you know, Jason, scholarship it is very fad-ish.
Sure.
And often the guild follows particular ideologies the way Vogue follows hymnlines. And right now, in our current historical deconstruction period sort of thing, and trying to elevate voices that have been silenced in the past.
Sure.
So the Sumerians are one of those voices. We've got it in the Persian period. But I think the book itself, and when I say I think, I have been working on the Book of Deuteronomy since I wrote my dissertation proposal.
Okay.
Which I submitted in 1997. So I've been thinking about these questions for quite a while.
Yeah.
The book itself really pushes us toward a time of recording that I would put in the transition between the Iron 1 and the Iron 2A. Okay. Which means somewhere in the 10th century BCE.
Okay. Now, is there any impact that knowing or not knowing the who and the when affects our reading of the book?
Massive.
Okay.
It's massive. And that's one of the reasons I've spent a great deal of time on it. Think of it this way, and some of your audience will have actually seen both these movies.
Okay.
John Wayne, Red River.
Sure.
It's all about the American frontier and the settling of the Europeans in the Wild West. And John Wayne, of course, is the consummate American in this film.
Yeah.
So you would ask the question, what period is being portrayed? And the answer is the frontier period of the American Wild West. Now ask, from the perspective of the people who wrote that movie, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? And what are the major crises? And if you are a John Wayne fan, you know that the good guys are the American settlers, the bad guys are the indigenous Americans, the American Indians, that the indigenous Americans are brutes and savages. They slaughter John Wayne's intended, and, we go from there. That movie was written in the 1950s, filmed in the 1960s, by Americans for Americans.
Sure.
Now let's move forward to Dances with Wolves.
Okay.
Kevin Costner is now the ideal American. Same period, American settlement, same players. Yeah. The American settlers and the Union Army, which shows up in John Wayne as well. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? Who are the civilized and who are the savages? And the entire paradigm is shifted. Now the American settlers are the savages. They are the brutes who are slaughtering the folks who cannot or will not defend themselves. Same type period being being presented. Same audience, by Americans for Americans, 40-year difference. That's all one generation. So if this book was written by and for the exiles who are resettling in the land of beyond the river during the Persian period, as opposed to it being written for the new settlers who are crossing the Jordan River, whose identity as a tribal federation has been shaped by their encounter at Mount Sinai, and the land that they are infiltrating is the land of the Canaanites. Can you imagine the dramatic differences about who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, and what the ideal citizen looks like? So I think the historical context of this book is critical to our understanding of it.
So this question has become my favorite question that I ask in this series, and that's, how would you describe this book in one sentence? Yeah. So I actually do describe this book in one sentence on a regular basis. And this is what I say. The Book of Deuteronomy is a law code tucked inside a narrative, staged as a speech, and formatted as a covenant. So as you engage this book, you sticky points, which I know we have to talk about yet. The sticky points are the enormous shifts in genre as we're engaging this particular book, because it is a law code tucked inside a narrative, staged as a speech, Moses' speech, and yet it's formatted as a second millennia suzerain vassal Hittite treaty. It is a complex book. It is a complex book. So let's talk about that narrative that you said that it's, it's this law code that's tucked in a narrative. So, so can you describe for us the narrative? Now I understand it's staged as a speech, as you shared with us, but what does the narrative structure of the book look like? Love the narrative structure of Deuteronomy, and this so preaches, because it's all about God's people in liminal space, and liminal space just means in between space. So liminal, if you take it back to its Latin roots, means threshold. I'm stepping from one room to another. I'm stepping from one identity to another. And that's what the Book of Deuteronomy narratively is all about. The people of God standing on the plains of Moab. They're just coming out of the wilderness. And although the wilderness has negative connotations, it also has some very positive ones.
These people have gotten to live in a kind of a utopia of just us, right?
Yeah.
The 12 tribes all living under Moses' very strong and respected leadership. They've been unified. They've known who they are, where they're going. The tabernacle is right in the middle of the camp. Life has been pretty stable. And granted, it has not been the land flowing with milk and honey. So economically, comfort levels have not been high, but it's been stable. Yeah. And they are now standing on the edge of the promised land, and they've completed all of those tasks, the wilderness. And you and I and they are thinking, okay, now for the cushy vacation in the Bahamas, right? And instead, what is announced to them is, okay, team, now the hard part starts. Now we're about to conquer the promised land. And they're like, what? Hasn't there been enough suffering, honestly, enough discomfort? And instead, Moses is announcing to them, I'm moving the mantle of leadership over to Joshua. He's going to be your military captain, and you're going to head across this river, and you are going to claim the land promise. Okay, so they're standing there in this in-between space. And essentially what Moses is begging them to do is to choose life. Let me tell you who you were. Let me tell you who you are. And let me predict to you who you can be if you will embrace this very challenging task and engage in the conquest of the promised land. If you will engage.
Yeah.
And if you will honor the covenant when you get to the other side of this river, your life will be overflowing with milk and honey, with prosperity, with political stability. I probably already said economic security. So choose that.
Yeah.
Choose life. So that's the narrative, is here we are standing in liminal space, and Moses is speaking to them of their future. One major parallel, if we take it into the new covenant, is Jesus standing on that unnamed mountain in the Galilee. And he's got 11 redneck turned disciples standing in front of him. And he says, guys, there's a world to conquer out there. And I am laying this enormous task on your shoulders. If you will embrace this task, I will go with you. I will be with you day after day after day. I will give you victory. Same message. But here's the other part of the announcement. I'm not actually going with you.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit's going to go with you. And I see Israel standing in that same space. 11 redneck turned warriors, or should we say ex-slaves turned citizens of the kingdom. They have the weight of the task of the kingdom resting on their shoulders. If they don't succeed, the whole story falls apart. But what is the average guy standing there thinking? And I would say the average guy is standing there thinking, the wilderness wasn't that bad. Life was cushy. I had my little tent going on. I have my wife, my 3 kids. I got 100 sheep. Life is okay.
Yeah.
Do we really have to cross the river?
That's a great question. I mean, and that's the interesting part is for so many of those people, the wilderness is all they knew. And so the idea of having to transition into something new, even though it's what they have in theory been marching towards the whole time, when faced with that, it's like, oh, hold on. I know this. That's fascinating.
And when you think about it anthropologically, we have got a tribal federation. And what does that mean? Well, if your audience go back to Indigenous Americans again. If we think about the Sioux or the Cherokee or the Chumash, right? That is a very good place to go. As we think anthropologically, this tribal federation is now being invited to become a settled people in urban centers with some level of a centralized government. These are really big changes.
Yeah.
And when I call it the last boyfriend speech, I know you've been wondering about that.
I was going to bring it back up. I'm glad you did.
Okay, so I'm a mom. I have 2 perfect daughters who are both in that emerging adult stage. One is 18, one just turned 22. And a long time ago, I was writing a blurb for a colleague's book, and it was on family discipleship. And all right, I agreed to do it because he was a friend. And how many books have I read on family discipleship? Oh, maybe 2. And so I need to read the book, right? And so I'm flipping through this book as fast as I can so I can write a responsible blurb. And I get to the part about talking to your kids about the birds and the bees, right? And my colleague says in this book that you need to actively plan when you're going to have this conversation with your children, because if your child is 8 years old, you can be confident that someone else has already had the conversation with them. And my oldest at the time was about 7.5. I dropped the book, ran into her bedroom, and said, we need to talk. Okay. So all of this parenting that involves dating, marriage, all that stuff, hence the last boyfriend speech. In my household, we started having the dating conversation when they were about 8. And the conversation involved cars, curfews, and kissing. And I know they don't all start with C, but, you know.
Yeah, I get it,
There's alliteration.
I noticed,
So, cars, curfews, and kissing. So we started having the conversation when they were about 8. I ramped it up when they were about 13. And then at 16, when they were actually allowed to go out on a first date, here's the question I always ask my undergrads. Do you think that I actually let those girls out the front door with that foolish young man who thought that, you know, he was going to be able to whisk her off in his fancy car? Do you think I let them out the front door without having that conversation one more time?
Yeah.
And the answer is heck no. And that's what I think Moses is up to. I think he's having the last boyfriend speech.
Yeah.
This is the last time that he gets to tell these people who he has given his life to. And it's not, he's been pleasant, you know? They have carved out a bloody hole in his soul.
Been through a thing, yeah.
Yeah. And he's not going to let them out the door without one more review of this is who you were, this is who you are, and if you will keep the covenant, this is who you can be.
Yeah.
But if you don't keep the covenant, it's all going to fall apart.
Well, and that's like, again, if you put it, putting Moses at that focal point, and that he has felt this responsibility for these people, like literally had the responsibility placed on him by God for these people and the actions of these people. God is holding Moses accountable for their actions. And he has carried this weight, this burden, but he's done so in knowing that he's doing it with God, and how close Moses and God had their relationship, and knowing that he's got them to this point, and he knows he's not crossing that river.
Yes.
And so he's having to, it's that idea of the bird leaving the nest. He's like, okay, I can't be with you as you move forward, but I have been with you this whole time. So I got to make sure one more time that I feel like that, my heart in this. And man, do I hope that you guys continue growing and building and listening to God and doing this with him. And, and that carries on into Joshua, because we see a similar thing with Joshua at the end of that book as well. And so it's really special to see the heart that these leaders, these godly men were carrying into their people, and just I want the best for you. I want the best for you. God wants the best for you. Listen to him, follow him, and you will have the promised land. It'll be what he has talked about. As you said, the land of milk and honey, but that's only if you follow him. Do it.
Absolutely. And there is very much the disciplinary voice in the mix too, because he's, man, has he seen these people screw up. and again, I think of that allegory or analog of parenting. We can be very fierce with our children, and we're fierce with them, or at least the healthy parent is fierce with them, because we're so profoundly invested in their future. I mean, never have I been harsher with my children than when I knew that their safety was at risk.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of one of the classic tales, same firstborn, same poor child. I'll probably be paying for her therapy throughout her life. But I had her in Israel. And I've had my kids in Israel several times. And she was she was 5. So, she's still at that very rambunctious age. And it had been a very long day. We were on an excavation. The kid's getting up early. She's not getting enough sleep. I've got graduate students coming out my ears. And we've just arrived in Jerusalem. And what do I want my students to see? I want them to see the Western Wall on a Friday night, right? So we put the pedal to the metal, drop our stuff in the hotel, race across the old city, and get through security, and there we are. Okay, and my students are in awe, and my toddler is done. She's done, and I've got her by the hand. And if you've been there, all of the fountains are kind of to the left. The prayer wall is in front of me. I've got her by the hand, and I lean down, and I'm talking right in her face, and I say, "Sweetheart, you will not let go of my hand. Do you understand me? You will stay by my side. You will hold my hand." And I'm really like eyeball to eyeball. And I say to her, her name is Noelle. I say, "Noelle, if I lose you here, I may never be able to find you. Do you understand?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yes, Mama." I stand up. She breaks away and sprints into a crowd of 10,000 people. I chased that kid down. I paddled her behind. I was so fierce with her. Why was I that fierce with her? Because if I lose you here, honey, I may never be able to find you.
Yeah.
And I see that in Moses' stance over and over again as he preaches to these people. If I lose you now, the whole thing falls apart. The whole thing falls apart.
Well, and that's clearly a strong theme of this book. But I do want to ask you if there is another main theme that you would want to identify of this book, and if you could talk about it in a way of how does knowing this theme help us to read the book?
Yeah. There are a bunch of themes because again, it is a very complex book, and let me warn your readers that it's a complex book. The first 4 chapters basically rehearse how Israel got here. So Moses tells them their story, which is a great place to start. He and Joshua is going to do the same thing in Joshua chapter 24, and Samuel's going to do the same thing in 1 Samuel 8. So he tells them their story, and he tells them how they got there. And so one of his major themes is going to be you need to remember. You need to remember who you are. You need to remember what God has done for you in the past. Because if you remember who you are and you remember what he's done for you in the past, then you're going to have the confidence and the wherewithal to keep the covenant. And if you keep the covenant, then you will be blessed.
Yeah.
But other major, kind of shadow theme, if you forget who you are and you forget where you came from, and if you forget God's mighty works on your behalf, then you're going to disobey the covenant, and then you're going to be cursed. So remember so that you can obey, so that you can be blessed. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
And then very fun, in my opinion, and again, very preachable, is when we get to chapters 6 through 11, which are the big ramp up to the law code. He's going to actually rehearse what remembering looks like, and he's going to do it theme by theme. So in chapter 6, the theme is going to be, so team, when God makes you successful, don't forget where you came from. So that's the first thing. Don't forget where you came from. When God makes you successful, when your vineyards are productive and your coffers are full, because God has kept his side of this covenant, when you build great and splendid cities and you get to occupy great and splendid cities that you didn't actually build, watch yourself. Be careful is what Eugene Peterson would translate, lest you forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of slavery. And yes, that is an important part of Israel's covenant, but it's also a very direct reminder. You were a slave. You were no one and nobody. So when you succeed, don't forget that. And that's going to be chapter 6. Then chapter 7, when God makes you successful, don't join the club. Don't start acting like Canaanites. Don't assimilate. Remember that Yahweh has driven out 7 nations all around you, 7 nations that were better than you, 7 nations that were more powerful than you and wealthier than you. So don't you make treaties with them. Don't you intermarry with them. Don't join the club. There's a lot of good stuff there. And then we can move on to chapter later in chapter 7, which will also remind them that God has set his affection on them, not because they were more numerous or more holy or more whatever than the other people, but simply because he chose them with unconditional love. Chapter 8, when God makes you successful, don't think it's because of how talented you are. In other words, start taking credit for your own success. Chapter 9, when God makes you successful, don't think it's because of how moral you are. And by the time we get done with chapters 6 through 11, we're like, I am nothing but a sinner saved by grace. I am just one beggar telling another beggar where to find bread. And that's Moses' whole ramp up before he gets to the actual law code.
So we've talked about that there are some sticky points with this book. So let's talk through some of those now. We've kind of talked through a bit of the structure. We've kind of talked through some of those themes. As people are going to be getting into reading this book, they're going to come across some sticky parts. So what are some of those that people should look out for? And then how should we approach reading those?
So let me answer the last one first. Readers need to approach this book recognizing that what they're reading is the constitution and bylaws of ancient Israel. And this whole piece, and in particular, the law code tucked in the middle, chapters 12 through 26, these are their federal documents. This is how Israel is supposed to live in the land. And this covenant document, this constitution of bylaws, is intended to shape Israel's behavior throughout the settlement, the period of the judges, and the monarchy. And that makes it a really important book. It's kind of the Romans of the Old Testament. And just like the book of Romans is hard to read, it's complicated. You take little bites of the book of Romans, right? You don't sit down and read the whole thing at once. That's what's going to happen with the book of Deuteronomy as well. But for your readers to recognize that they're building the platform, understanding Israel's experience as a nation, okay, it's worth the investment. So what are the sticky points? That genre issue is going to be a sticky point. People are going to potentially feel while they're reading the Book of Deuteronomy like they're teaching their 16-year-old how to drive a stick shift. You're going to go like, okay, I'm reading along, I've got the narrative, and that was rough. And now there's another introduction. Why are there two introductions to this book? And then, well, now I'm back in the 10 Commandments. Okay, I recognize these. And then, now I'm in those preparatory sermons before the law code. So they're going to have several rugged literary transitions. But I say, just go with it, just go with it. And by the time they get to the end and they come to what the scholars call Moses' hortatory climax. Isn't that great?
Hortatory, there you go.
Hortatory. That just means preaching, by the way. So when we get to the climax of Moses' sermon, and the climax is the same hortatory climax that Joshua uses. Yeah. Choose you this day. Tell me, who will you serve? Will it be your gods of your fathers across the river, or will it be Yahweh? If you will serve Yahweh, if you will keep his covenant, if you will give your loyalty to him and only him, and not to all the other gods that you're going to be introduced to in the land of Canaan, then you will live, you will thrive, and your children will live after you. But if you don't, and now the list of all of the curses that will occur, and by the way, all of those curses are ultimately related to losing the land.
Yeah.
So all of them, these people are not going to hell if they break the covenant. These people are losing the land of Canaan if they break the covenant. And losing the land means they're losing military security, political stability, and economic prosperity as well. Yeah. That's what will happen if they break the covenant. And then our guy Moses, and call me sentimental if you want, I can see a very rugged man standing in front of the assembled tribes. And he's a guy who smiles every 3 weeks at this point. But I see tears in his eyes. And what is he begging them? Choose life. Please choose life. Choose life.
Yeah.
And that's the climax of the sermon. And then our biblical authors start shutting it down. And we get to the very last chapter. And we read how Moses, puts down his sermon notes. He probably gives Joshua a big hug and a big slap on the back, gives a final wave, and turns around and climbs a mountain and dies. Again, talk about rhetorical impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and that's what it does seem to be the most striking part of this conversation about Deuteronomy is you're seeing just the heart of this man. You're seeing his passion, and you ultimately, as you said, like you can picture him with tears in his eyes saying, choose life. And ultimately what he's feeling, it seems like at the time, is if I could choose this for you, if I could make this choice, I would.
Yes,
but it's on you now. I can't anymore. My time is done. The sun is setting on my time with you. You need to be the ones now to make that choice. And as you said, so much of it is tied to the land because, in land is such a huge part of identity. At the time, you had these people, this nation that was in wandering, and they've been given this opportunity to have this land and to stake an identity in this land. And that's where these promises are so true. It's saying, follow God, follow these rules, live the way that God has told you to, and you can have this anchoring in your identity in this land, in you as a people. But if you don't, then that land will be taken away, and with it comes that rooted identity, and you will be a people in wandering again, be lost again. And you just see that, just again, it's that so much that heart, that huge desire. And that is what I think seems to be the biggest takeaway from Deuteronomy. And if you're entering into reading this book maybe for the first time, put special attention on just on trying to picture Moses talking to these people that he has spent all of this time with, who he loves deeply, and has been the prophet for, has been the voice of God for these people. And if you think about yes, there's a lot of law, as you said, there's a lot of legal documentation. This is the constitution of the people of Israel, but it's being shared by Moses, who is saying, I'm trying to transition you into this new season without me. And so I need to get this out there for you. And I hope that you always remember this, and remember your God, who is still with you. He's still with you. Even without me, God is still with you.
Yeah. And I think that's a very important point, because they have seen him, rightly so, as the embodiment of the presence of God among them. Yeah. Yeah. And we think of, so many great transitions. I'm actually thinking of the musical Hamilton right now, and that song, Teach Them How to Say Goodbye. When George Washington turns
one last time. Yeah.
And the other thing that always circles through my mind is the fact that these promises of land go back at least as far as Abraham. And so generations upon generations have sacrificed to get the people of God to this place in the story. And honestly, don't blow it now. Don't blow it now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's on you now. Don't screw up.
Don't screw up. There it is. Those will be my last words. I can see it now on my deathbed.
I love it. Don't screw up.
And beloved daughters of mine, don't screw up.
I love it. I'm going to put some resources in the show notes. So make sure to be looking at that. I want to make sure to note again that Dr. Richter has a commentary on Deuteronomy that she is working on right now. And when that gets released, I will go back and add it to the show notes as well. So before I ask you to pray us out, Sandy, is there one last thing about Deuteronomy that you want to close our time with before we pray out?
Well, I would say that the structure of the book and Moses himself clearly communicate that the foundation of these people's identity is their covenant with the Almighty. The Ten Commandments are repeated in their entirety in chapter 5, intentionally. This is who they are. So let me encourage your audience with the same. Who are we? Ultimately, when everything else is stripped away, we are the people of God by oath and blood and covenant. And if we can hang on to that identity, we will not only survive this life, we will thrive in this life. But if we lose that identity, well, it's all going to fall apart. Yeah. Let me pray.
Thank you.
Father God, I want to thank you for the folks who are listening to this podcast right now. And my mind is wandering to radios in cars and AirPods during walks and runs and so many different contexts. And I want to pray for the people who are listening right now. The Book of Deuteronomy, the story of the tribes of Israel, Moses' leadership, and then that first century rabbi standing on an unnamed mountain in Galilee. This is who we are, and we are part of a great story, a great rescue story, where our Father, our God, our King, our Lord, is cashing in all of his chips to bring his people home. Deuteronomy is part of that great story. Will you encourage us, strengthen us, teach us to choose life, to remember what it is you've done for us in the past, so that we can keep your commandments and we can be. Lord, teach us to choose life. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.